You got a new one.
Okay, we are resuming our meeting, although we lost a council member. Our next item is consideration of resolution 19-05, authorization to negotiate and execute contract with Empower for 457B record keeping services, presented by our finance director.
So we've had discussions about RFPs and contracts and that sort of thing, and this is another one of those. So the 457B record keeping services, in the private sector you have a 401k, in the public sector it's a 457B. And with that we've had Lincoln has been our record keeping services provider for a number of years, and Piggott Financial, that does some of the fiduciary work for us, talked with us about a year and a half ago about starting the RFP process to look to see if there's some better situations for the city's employees. So they've carried on that RFP on our behalf. They had 146 different providers they looked at. Of that, they chose 6 to send the RFP to and review. 2 of those came back as the top providers, selected as panelists, and then I think it was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, we sat down with them and did interviews with these 2. And so we had it was Empower that came and Nationwide. And so I was really impressed with what Empower offered. It's slightly more expensive than what the city's plan would be as it is, but their online tool is amazing. It allows the employees to not only see their 457 plans, but they can also add in their own separate accounts they may have, either rental properties or other 450s, not 457s, but 401ks they might have, or their CalPERS can all go into the system and help them monitor where they are on their path to retirement. So it's a great enhancement, I think, for them. It gives us a third-party administrator that we don't have right now. We're having to do that in-house, and that's something we really would like to get out to others to handle that side of it. And that deals with if employees are going to take loans out of their 457. Right now, we're having to cut the checks and manage it and have it go back. We have an account it comes from. It doesn't come from city coffers for those. But we're having to track it and talk with them about when they're repaying and all of it. So getting it off to someone else to handle with a really small increase, it's like $300 a year or something like that, to have that with a increased, $500 a year, increased presence there online is really going to make a difference for employees. And so I'm very much interested in seeing this move forward and getting that tool in place. Empower also provides for the county. And so I called some friends over the county, kind of counterparts over there, and asked the experience, and it's been absolutely great for them. And so it's the largest one, and they have a specific government services group where the others don't. It's all mixed, but they're focused just on government, this particular side of the business. And so it's going to be a great service for us as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we really need an independent third-party administrator. We shouldn't be doing that for our own. So if these guys will do that and manage it all, that would relieve us of some liability and probably a little bit of expense too.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there any questions?
What is currently in effect as far as
meaning who
the
does
retirement
right now? So let me see if I think I know where you're going with it. But so all employees are part of CalPERS, and there's 2 different tiers of CalPERS based on when you started. And then with that, there's a 457 plan, and the city matches employees up to 3%. And so they put in 3%, we match 3%. That's growing to be an uncommon thing in local governments, but it's something we can do to help the employees. It gives them an automatic raise if they want to put the funds in. That just puts us in a better position for them and helps them plan for their own retirement. And so it's an investment, different mutual funds. They have a lot that they can choose from, and they can pick some that are like a target date plan. It says retire in 2045, so I don't really want to think about it. Just let me have one of those plans, and it'll auto adjust as you get closer. Or those that feel more comfortable can pick a plan that's more aggressive or more conservative for them. They have plans that are fixed return, where you're guaranteed a certain growth rate each year. It's not much. It kind of keeps up with inflation, but for those that are nearing the retirement age, it makes that money more secure for them because they don't want to have the risk of potentially losing that you would have from big swings in the market.
You need a motion?
Yes.
So moved.
Moved by Watson,
Second.
second by Sanchez. Would the clerk please take roll?
Councilmember Watson.
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilmember Flores.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cortez.
Aye.
Mayor Kimball.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Our next item is a discussion on the formation of a rates and fees ad hoc committee presented by Bill Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the city functions primarily on revenues from fees and taxes. As part of the budgeting process and in planning for future years, it's time to review the city's rates and fees for accuracy and sufficiency. Staff believes the establishment of an ad hoc committee focused on rates and fees will provide valuable input to the research and analysis process. Staff believes a rate and fees ad hoc committee is different from a budgeting ad hoc committee, which is why staff is asking for the creation of a new committee. So for example, development impact fees, there are a variety of fees and things that we have to do. What improvements do we want to do to some of our capital improvement, our infrastructure? And we want to get together with an ad hoc, go through this, see what direction you guys want to take, and again, you come back and you brief council with your recommendations. Be happy to answer any questions. We haven't done this before, it's a new one.
Yeah, right, it's a new one. So everybody has this memorandum which lists the committees, it's like this, that we either already have or are considering tonight. Looking at that, with Sanchez and Flores being on the Retail Cannabis Committee, everybody but myself is on a ad hoc committee, at least once. And then we have 2 more to fill tonight. I would be happy to serve on the City Rates and Fees Committee.
So the city rates like what?
Everything
Like
we
building
charge.
fees or whatever, you know,
okay.
yeah.
We're supposed to make sure the fees we charge match the cost of the service, and some of ours are pretty outdated. They just need to be reviewed, or some may be too much, and they need to be reviewed. And so it's just it's something we only want to do every couple of years because it's a pretty arduous process, but we really want to have council input from the very beginning as we start to look at how to do those.
And the council itself, you ultimately approve the fees, but you won't set the fees. There's typically an engineer will go through and calculate out the time and how much it costs for staff. So it's not like council, will be in charge of like making up a number to assign, for like, how much to rent a gazebo or something like that. You'll have guidance in that, and that's also important because we're not allowed to charge more than what it costs for items. So, for example, like the gazebo. So if you want to rent out the gazebo, we can't rent it out for $500 a day. It has to be tied to other things like how much maintenance is
Right, and when we set the first
lighting.
fees, we didn't really know what that's going to be, so it's time to look at it again and
Yeah.
see what are the real costs.
And so then kind of expand that example out to everything. So when you want a building permit, like that fee is set by how much time staff time goes into that, other costs, as far as if we send it out to a contractor, what is their rate? And so the city doesn't make any money off of those things, but those are all tied specifically to like an engineer's report. And then the council will have to decide, like in many cities, you may not, one of the areas would be like recreation. It may cost you, $100 a day to run the olive bowl. But a lot of groups can't afford that. And so you have to decide, you can't charge them more than that, but if you charge them less than that, where is that difference going to come from? And you may decide that's perfectly fine because you want to have Little League there or whatever. But those are the discussions that the whole council has to have after the rates come back.
So why do you need an ad hoc?
to go through this and really, I really want to be as transparent as we can possibly be. And so I want dialogue, I want hard questions being asked, and to make sure that the ad hoc is satisfied with what staff brings to council. We're having talks tonight about information that came to council that you guys aren't happy with. The best way I see to make sure that the trust is built and that it's a council decision, not a staff decision, is to involve council earlier. And we can only involve 2 of you, and we chase things, we provide you with information, and then you come back and you report to council with your recommendations. That's why.
Well, I just think that everything is already set by whoever does the studies, and then they just tell the ad hoc committee, and then the ad hoc committee says, okay.
Because if you're saying like because we're not discussing, we can't just, they're coming up with $50, whatever, to rent their gazebo or whatever. We can't come back and say, well, how about 25?
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
Yes, you can't
Okay.
charge more, but you
just
can
can't
decide to charge
more, but-
less.
So it's setting the base of whatever,
The ceiling.
ceiling, okay, yes,
Yeah.
okay.
And it may be that we're doing something, and you may say, what it helps is there's some things that we do that lose money. Recreation is key. You lose money on this, and it's your call as to how much money you're willing to lose, or whether you want to cut programs or no. We've talked about the soccer complex. You know, my goal had been to have it be revenue neutral, to be self-sustaining. Is that practical? Do we need to help them a little bit? And it needs to be your decision. And I think the more involved you folks are, the more transparent it'll be, and the more comfortable you'll be with the decisions coming out of council.
So in regards to the soccer field, we would not, assuming there was a large tournament that wanted to come in, it will not be possible for the city to make any money on leasing out the park or the soccer field for the different tournaments. Are we going to be locked into a ceiling based upon our fee structure right now, or is that animal a little bit different?
It's a little bit different. So when we talk about fees, that is real specific.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is really what is the rate that the city is going to charge out for its own services.
Right. Oh.
Right. So everything from like dog licenses.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What does it cost for a person to get a dog license? It just completely depends on how much staff time and how much service that the PD is providing.
Right.
Right. That's different than leasing out a facility. That's not a service.
Right.
Essentially, you're a property owner getting a rental rate.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Okay. So there's a lot of detail to doing this kind of a study. And the suggestion is the staff would be more comfortable if there were a couple of council members involved as a committee to review the detailed work that's going on, and then the whole rate structure could be brought back before the council without having to do all the detailed work.
But I think, Rosanna, aren't you and I on this
Harvard,
Harbor
that's
Park?
the one that I'm, yeah.
Well,
You don't have me down, that's the one that I'm.
We're not done because we couldn't make the motion last time.
Oh, that's
But
right.
that's why I'm waiting, because
Yeah.
Okay,
that's the one that I want.
that's the one you want. I get it.
It'd be really great to have a new council member involved with this process too, so that you can, with confidence,
Right.
Come on, Bill.
go whatever direction you're going to go.
Right up your alley.
Yolanda?
And to me, I just think it wouldn't serve a purpose, because like I said before, they're going to be making the rates. So I think it could be done without an ad hoc committee. And then us discuss
can
it
be.
once the rates
Unless
are.
any of the other council members are interested in it.
I think that it is important to have feedback, and especially, I'm passionate about the youth sports, so if they come back and they say, well, it should be this amount, and the sports aren't making any money, why are you charging that amount? I think it's important to get feedback from parents or from coaches or organizers or whatever too, so I'd be happy to serve on it. I see a purpose to it.
Thank you.
All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve Kimball and Cortez is the ad hoc committee for the city fees and rates structuring.
So moved.
Second it.
Moved by Watson, seconded by Flores. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thanks.
Thank you. Where are we? Number 15, market operations, RFP, finalized time, day, location for market, presented by Beth Harmon.
All right. You know, I don't think we've introduced our new
And we haven't.
replacement.
We just-
So, would you sit up for just a second?
Gave her baptism of fire.
So, yes, it definitely has been. So, Yuriko's been with us for about 5 days now.
Yeah, almost.
So, she replaced Maria Knudsen and is doing a great job so far. And she is running that side of things. She's going to be the deputy city clerk as well. And we'll eventually get to taking the minutes and that sort of thing too. So, we're excited to have her here.
And many other hats as well.
So let's take a look. There's still options and things that can go on with RFP. So it's out to market because we need, because we need a contract so that we can have a market this year. And so this step, as explained before, to have a contract to go through the RFP process. And there's still 3 things that we think are outstanding. We've had an ad hoc committee meeting about it, and still want the whole council's input on final location. So there's 3 options. Are we do the next one? So there's 3 options for locations. There's downtown, there's out at Olive Bowl, and up at Ono Parkway. And so this first one here is showing downtown area. And so it's you've got 2 variations on this slide. The yellow is all the areas where you would have vendors. And so you've got the paved street west of the Mercado and the plaza there, and then along Honolulu up to Mirage. You'll see the red dotted line there is an option to maybe cut it short at that alley. That could relieve some parking pressures and other pressures on that side of the street. And then going north and south there on Elmwood, about 1/3 of a block both directions above Honolulu. And so the Mercado area here in the orange is where you would have the music and vendors would set up there as well. And then, like I said, up that alley there on the west side of.
And some of this adjustment, council, is in response to complaints, noise complaints that we've received from residents that live in the Mount Whitney and residents that live in the Sweetbriar townhomes, along with the China's Alley and the impacts on that. So trying to make some adjustments in that way to accommodate, just for you to look at and consider.
Right, there's no lighting down that.
No, currently I don't believe there is.
So these options have been shown. We had a non-mandatory bidders conference, and so RFPs can either have a mandatory meeting or non-mandatory. Mandatory would mean if you don't show up, you don't get to bid. It was non-mandatory, so you've got a wider range of people that can still put in their responses. Responses are due in a couple of days, on Thursday actually, 2 days. We've had 1 response submitted so far, but my hope is to take whatever decision there's tonight. If there is one on a particular location, we'll be sharing that with those we know are interested and on the website so they can fine-tune the response. And if council decides they want to add an extra week, we can extend that deadline through next Thursday instead of this Thursday to give people a chance to complete based on what the decisions are tonight. So this is the first area. The second area, then we'll go to the next one, is out of the Olive Bowl. This one has not received as much support from the ad hoc committee, but it would be the whole DG or decomposed granite area along Tapia, right? Apia.
That's paved there, and we would propose that you'd have a DG area for parking on the west side.
And so on these options, this one's a little shorter. It's only 1,800 linear feet. The one before was 2,100 linear feet. And if you're doing a 10-foot by 10-foot booth in both sides of the street, you're going to have a lot of options for how many booths you can bring in. Those can be expanded to larger ones for food vendors or what have you. And then the next one then is Loma City Parkway. So this would take half of the Lindsay Wellness parking lot which would give lights there in the evening. Having those lights on and the street lights down on the City Parkway would allow for activities going on in the park for children or others while families there at the market. Would centralize the music and any alcohol vendors there in the parking lot, and then run the length of Ona City Parkway. It's a wider street, larger sidewalks. There's kind of more options there for that one. And that one is, I don't see linear feet there, 1,265, but there's a larger area there in the parking lot. So those are the three options we have there. And if council feels more strong about one or another, we can put that as a top priority. The respondents know that they can make other suggestions, but we're trying to keep it as uniform as possible.
Brett, is there going to be, I know maybe I'm getting ahead of myself there, but once a contract is made with someone, will there be a stipulation there where we would come together maybe, or they would with city staff and review, like it's working, it's not working, maybe we need to do this, and then so that changes can be made?
Yes. Okay. And we can write the contract to ensure those things are in place. So up to this point, any preference for the council?
Downtown.
To the end?
Downtown.
Okay,
Downtown.
agree. All right. So let's go on to the next one then. And so then what's left is just the day and time. Now we've heard primarily that Friday, the same time, that 6 to 10 is good, but you have other options. You can go another day of the week in the morning or during the middle of the day on a Saturday, something like that would reduce some noise.
Because then I can't go.
Levels too.
Just kidding.
It's
It's Friday from 6 to 10. That's what it's always been. That's,
I would say
Started
Friday,
at
yeah,
5.
6 to 10.
No?
Because it did change from 6 to 10, because it
5
used,
to
was it
10
always
up.
6 to 10? Or was it 5 to 10
Oh,
before?
because those vendors get in there at 3:30.
They're setting up a little earlier than that, so I don't know if that actually kicks up at 5, I think,
I
huh?
think it was,
Yeah,
My dad would set up at 4.
Yeah,
oh, at 4?
yeah, they're setting up
But there
earlier.
was open right there. Like, there was no.
They close it at 4. Because I would want to pick up
Oh,
my
they
mom.
were closed.
yeah.
And so they close
Some
it
of
straight
them
at 4.
close at
I would
3:30.
say, and those are the set times.
No, you can change
Oh,
those.
okay.
Those are
Okay.
examples of what it could
Examples.
be.
I mean, 6 to 10.
I like Friday, 10, I don't know, I think, by the time people pack up and everything, it gets really late, so that's just concerning to me, but I like the concept of Friday evening.
So like a 5 to 9 thing instead of a 6 to 10.
Yeah, because by the time they pack up or everybody starts leaving, it turns out to be about 10 o'clock, so that's my preference.
So start earlier.
6,
early.
5:30, but they can start setting up at 6?
No, they're setting up at
No,
4
no,
o'clock
no.
now
They
to
set
get
up
ready to go at
earlier.
5 o'clock. They need oftentimes an hour. Some of them need more time than that to get set up.
Yeah.
Okay, no, but I mean, I understand that.
We could do
You just
5 to
option.
9.
You can change whatever you want up there.
5 is a good time because we have a lot of people that work in town that come from out of town, so when they leave at 4:30, 5 o'clock, they tend to stop by and then go home from there.
So you're.
That's what I've
5 to 9?
noticed.
5 to 9.
Yeah, well, so it sounds like downtown, it gets the most votes, and 5 to 9 on a Friday is your preference right now, council?
So, yeah, just my thoughts on that. I think it most likely to be successful if we keep the same location and pretty much the same time. The downtown map out was different than what we're doing now, but I think that it is important to accommodate some people that have they've been paying the price, the homeowners on the condos and the China's restaurant, and somewhat there may be other ways to accommodate them, to mitigate that.
There may be, and I can address some of that, Madam Mayor, and also, in staff's mind, this is an evolutionary process. The contract, other than the change in fee structure, the concept of it hasn't really been reviewed. And so it's good for you to get it, take a look, see what you like, see what you don't like, see what you want to change, what you want to keep, and it helps keep the process where it needs to be. So, Unico, would you please go back to the map of the downtown area? Thank
Can we
you.
do 5, 10?
It can be whatever council wants it to be.
Sometimes they get hungry.
Julie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to have some comment on this agenda item, please.
The council open to comment?
No,
The agenda items are supposed to have ability for the public to participate.
that's in public comment.
No, it isn't, not for the agenda items, that's why I did not comment on this during the public comment period. I set it up in the rules years ago.
So who would like to allow Ms. Wisham to make comment?
I would like to allow 3 minutes, right?
All right, then I will allow it in every 3 minutes, but.
Thank you.
keep it brief.
Part of the problem we've had tonight is a lot of what we're having to decide about would normally be decided by a planning commission. So partly we're under a tremendous burden of work because we don't have a planning commission. If Reggie Ellis is right, he told me years ago, we're the only city in the whole Tulare County that does not have a planning commission. So I'm just going to put a bridge into it.
To look into.
A planning commission is different. So part of the problem with the RFP is that there's no statement of what the purpose of the Friday night market is. I think that when it was started, the purpose was to bring people downtown. So if that purpose is still a valid purpose, if that's why we have a city Friday night market that we contract with and are involved in, we need to have some sense of what are the purposes that we're trying to meet. With the way the RFP is written up right now, the only purpose we state is to bring in funds for the city. Now, that's one purpose, but that isn't the only purpose that's being served by this
So
market.
I can assure you that we've been considering the purposes of the downtown.
Okay, so that determines completely the location of the market.
Well, no, because we can change the purposes.
You
Because
can.
the purposes have not been
But
met.
they haven't been stated, they haven't been clarified, they haven't been put out with the RFP.
Thank you. Trudy, you're not bringing like new information, and we need to not have you we need to be able to discuss this among
We
ourselves.
told her 3 minutes.
Yeah, no, let her speak. Right. The only comment that I want to make is that the ad hoc committee met, and my understanding by Brett was that the ad hoc committee had already chosen those 3 sites. And the downtown area would change the way the Friday night market has been successful, bringing families in, and that's with the Sweetbriar Street, using the stage and using the grass area, and that was not included in there.
Right.
So council, if I may continue addressing you. We have had complaints from China's Alley about the lack of access he's had because its front has been secured, the lack of parking that he's been able to have. The letter was sent to all of you. He hasn't been able to use his banquet room since the market started. And so what staff has tried to do is it's worked with the ad hoc committee is we're trying to make as many win-wins as we can. That's what we're paid to do. And so we look at this, and if council chooses to go downtown, it sounds like it's your preference right now, how can we create the scope of something that could work for the vendor and the people who want to attend it while respecting the bricks and mortar businesses that this is supposed to help down there? So one of the suggestions that we have would be that you would barricade Sweetbriar where it intersects with Honolulu. And I would ask council to consider in front of restaurants 1-hour parking limits so that you don't have people camping out in front of them and taking parking away from the bricks and mortar businesses. So you've got China's Alley, you've got Miwa, you've got Fat Boys. I would ask that you consider that. We would still need to make allowances for the Lindsay Community Theater. They say they don't do events on Friday because of the Friday night market. Cheryl Cook called me just today wondering what's going on with this. And staff would like to work with them. There's a city parking lot north of the Bank of America and work out something where we can help them get into that area so that their needs are respected as well. But I think through parking limits, through some barricading, and trying to help whoever runs the market, steer them toward where parking is available. Hopefully, we can create a win-win for all the people concerned. That would be staff's desire. Certainly, I'm sure that'd be council's desire too.
Bill, there's a problem with the 1-hour parking. Are we going to hire more police officers to monitor that?
You got to start somewhere, is all.
Well, we cannot just play favoritism for 1 or 2 businesses when we've had multiple businesses here wanting the Friday night market to be as it stands today. we've had multiple businesses. And you're mentioning 3.
But that's up to you guys.
No, I understand
These are
that,
the options.
but I just wanted to clarify that.
Sure, but these are the
So-
options that you guys have to make.
Right.
Right, and they're not staff's decisions, they're council decisions. If you don't want to cater to the people who complain, that's perfectly fine, we just need to know that, so that we can get you the best, layout, or
Right.
address those people the best.
Well, that's what I wanted to make, is a statement that there was far more for it than there was against it.
Right, but my point is, that you should address the council, because Bill's not making
Right.
those decisions.
But he's making the recommendation.
Actually,
He's offering you options.
He's
You
recently-
guys need to decide.
so what's the purpose of maybe I was misinformed or maybe I'm wrong. But my understanding, when the farmer's market came in, Lindsay was beautified. Lights were brought in, I mean, it looks great, there's plants on the corners, fix the sidewalks, also along in front of, Chino Valley, that was all created beautifully. I thought it was all that section was created to have the farmer's market there for the businesses. So I'm wrong.
No, that would not be correct.
Okay.
The downtown was beautified for the city of Lindsay, for the
Okay,
downtown, it was.
Well, I just think that it's odd
Of
because
the
it happened
market.
at the same time when the farmer's market.
Well, actually
I came in,
happened
so
several years
I'm,
later.
right, so
than the
I'm
farmer's
just
market.
stating what, maybe a lot of people think that, I don't know. That's why I brought it up.
Can I say something or no?
No, we're off the rails already.
Well,
And
it's funny that the ad hoc was,
there's nothing funny about it.
it is funny.
No,
because
no,
the ad
there's
hoc-
nothing funny
can I
about it.
finish? The ad hoc was created before me and Yolanda were on the council. We yet to hear, I asked about when was the next meeting, I don't know when the next meeting, I was never told when the next meeting was. Was there even a next meeting?
Next meeting of what?
The ad hoc for the farmer's market. I had asked when I came on council and you said, oh, we're gonna have a meeting. We have an ad hoc meeting. Like, I couldn't ask any questions because
At the last
you
meeting
guys had a
that the
meeting.
ad hoc had, which I'm part of, along with Brian, the exact same discussion that we're having right now came out. And I actually was the one that said, you know what, why not take it back to council so that everybody takes ownership in whatever the final decision is, and that way Laura and Brian don't take all of the blame for whatever the entire council came. So actually, that was something that I kind of brought up, because I do think that it's important that, because this is such a big deal, I did think that it was important for all of us to have our 2 cents in.
Yes, well,
So-
when we came in,
Yeah.
When
Because
we made that
this problem
decision,
for a while, it didn't happen like right
the-
before you came in.
correct, the option was already there. So our option, when me and Yolanda came in, was the RFP. That was the option. I asked when was an ad hoc meeting because people were asking me, and I wanted to know what information was out there, or maybe I was misinformed, but that wasn't, there wasn't really nothing brought to, I didn't hear nothing regarding the meeting. Who was at the meeting, how many people attended? I got information because people were coming, and they gave us, there were signatures, and that's the information that I received.
So at the ad hoc committee, we would get together, have a discussion, we would bring it back here and discuss it with everybody. We had an ad hoc committee, this is what we discussed, and this is where we're at. So that's how it was, and, I don't know, I'm new at this, but I know when I started, we didn't start from zero, things just
Correct. So
continue,
that's what I'm
right?
saying.
Yeah.
We picked up where,
Exactly.
right at the end, so that's what I'm saying, the ad hoc committee and the meetings, and I don't know how many meetings took place, I don't know who was there, I do not know what was discussed, simply what was discussed here and what the people brought.
Well,
That's
that's me.
That's
That's
the
an ad hoc
information.
committee.
Well,
And
it's
so
not
they
just
have to
about
bring
me
it
though. There's a lot of people that are coming to the meeting, it's the same people that are coming.
We did report a couple times on it, so I'm sure it's somewhere in the recordings that we reported on meeting with the ad hoc committee about this.
Can I say something or
No, we need to, we need
It
to,
was built for the market. Everything was built for the market.
okay.
No.
And you can say whatever you want.
This is good. personal.
So we're,
It really is. And just so you guys know, I was reading in the paper, Porterville's having the same problem, the hospital with their market too, so.
That was very rude.
so we're dealing with these 3 different areas. Is there direction that you want to give us on which one to include or the update to the RFP?
The downtown.
I mean, I think that the adjustments, that the adjustments we're discussing is probably something that we need to give a try to encourage as much flexibility with, all the stakeholders downtown. And that's what we talked about with limiting the parking time and making a few adjustments of where the vendors can set up, where people actually are at, and and give this a try, because it is unfair that our largest employers who pay the most taxes have been taking the brunt of the decreased revenue for 14 years.
Who are you talking
about? Yeah. Well, no, not only them, but there are others as well. And so it's time for a simple adjustment to see how it works. That maybe this adjustment here will be better. So, we need to give it a try to see what kind of a difference it could make. And it could be a win-win for a lot more people.
This doesn't preclude use of the stage on that night. It just precludes the setting up of booths down that street.
Right. Besides, I believe that one section is painted red, correct?
Yeah, on the other side of the street.
Yeah.
So the stage and everything else would be able to be used?
Of course.
Just not, so you're talking about the parking? Okay, but there would be parking there?
No, parking would be allowed for the businesses that are there.
There would be a time limit on the parking.
Or could you have a sign that says customer parking?
Yeah, but there's got to be a time limit.
I don't know if that would, so are we gonna close one whole end, or, I'm not understanding
Well,
if we're keeping.
I think where it is, you just don't have booths going down.
Okay,
Sweet
but
bar,
people would be able to
walk
walk
down there
and all
and
that,
you can
okay.
still have, still use the park.
parking lots there, near.
And it'll end right there where the railroad track is at, or no?
So the yellow area designates where the booths would be.
Okay, so right at the
And
corner.
so with the downtown, the
Okay.
question then becomes, does that line on Honolulu go all the way to Mirage? Or does it stop at that dotted red line?
In support of the Mount Whitney folks.
Yeah, so there's a lot of complaints from the Mount Whitney folks.
Oh, those are the townhouses right on the corner? Is that-
Well, on the end of Sweetbriar, the townhouses, but then we got the, 63, 65 residents there at Mount Whitney. They would like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they would like it
At
moved.
the other end.
Yeah,
I'm backwards.
yeah. And, for emergency vehicles, for the last 14 years, if there had been a serious emergency downtown, no fire truck, no police car, no ambulance could get down there because of all the vendors. The alleyways are plugged. They're blocked with parking. Yes, they are. And so.
You're dealing with what ifs. I don't think we should do that.
What ifs? I don't know.
So how would you like
All
to
right,
proceed?
council, how should we proceed? I think everybody's in agreement with downtown. RFPs can make their suggestions. This is the suggestion of the ad hoc committee. I don't think it's a bad suggestion, something to try. We don't have to do it for the next 14 years, but we could try it for a year and see how that works out.
And even then, I think, like I was mentioning before, it would be, I think, to everybody's benefit to to then meet with the operator of the market and see what's going good, what's not going good. Maybe there should be changes. We should open up here, maybe close it here. I think that that's just good business, you know, for everybody. And there has to be clear communication too. We need to know, I think, again, it's just to everybody's best interest, how we really are helping our community.
So the next steps in the process then is once the RFP is either deadlined still on Thursday or pushed a week, after that, staff reviews the proposals for it, identifies scoring from the matrix that's provided to all of those that could be responders, establishes interviews if those are necessary, goes to the interview process to have those initial discussions with them. Then you go to the point where like, okay, this is the one we're going to select, and you start the negotiations over the contract. And it's in the contract there that you would add in all those different stipulations about how frequently we need different reporting, what they would be responsible for in this or that, if there's any access to city equipment or not, those types of things would be in that contracting process. And then from there, it comes back to council for approval to authorize staff to execute the contract.
Who's going to be on the interviewing committee?
I would assume the ad hoc committee or staff would be the ones that would be on that. And so that's something that you need to decide.
Have you, has anybody reached out as far as like an extension or needing more time to
We
complete
have
their
not had any requests for extensions, but they've been waiting for responses to this. So,
And if I could add, counsel, the concern that I've had was having so many very different scenarios. We want to make sure we're as fair as we can be, and I think whoever is going to bid on this thing should be know what it is that they're bidding on. If you leave it too loosey-goosey, well, you'll never get there, and there'll always be hard feelings with it. So we wanted to get to you to get your direction, to pick a spot and let everybody know what it is, and put your best bid forward.
So I think we're pretty much in agreement that it should stay downtown. Maybe some
And on
adjustments. Yeah, Friday.
Fridays.
Are we gonna
5 to
do
9 is what I.
5 to 9?
5 to 10? Well, the time you say 10, then it goes to 11, so you say 9, it's gonna end up like.
Yeah, but they have to absolutely stop at,
In August, it's not been cool till 9 o'clock.
yeah, it's,
Your call, guys.
I know, it's our call.
Well, how about 9:30?
We extend summer hours. I know, that's what I'm saying, like.
Whatever the majority votes on.
Yeah.
If we're not bothering the people who have homes as much, maybe it won't matter as much as it goes till 10. You know, it's the Mount Whitney people and the condo people and that they're like,
People, where are they?
so. We hear from them.
How?
They call us.
You could be making that up.
They call the police.
They call the police all the time.
So, council, I'm hearing the direction of 5 to 10. Yeah. Help me out here.
I think 5 to 10, only because, I don't know, just like they said, you know, it does,
Yeah,
get
during the
cooler
summer
later,
months.
and it's just, I just feel, that's what it's always been. I like it like that.
so if you're going to put a motion together, you just need to know which plan, to the red line or not, the day, the time, and whether or not you want an extension on the due date.
No extension on the due date.
Okay.
So,
It just needs to be a motion, so whoever's going to do it.
Might be a good idea.
for what?
Because there's more details now of what we
We've
want.
had the people from that came to the bidders conference waiting for this to finish their.
Well, they're going to have it tomorrow.
Okay. So do you need one motion for all 3 items?
I would prefer that. That'd be good.
Yeah. Well, then, yeah, I'll move that we move to solidify the location with the red lines, the time, and the date of Friday nights.
From 5 to 10?
Yeah, with some flexibility for that, for the operator.
Okay.
And extension or no extension? I didn't hear that.
No extension.
Okay, so the location, they're on Honolulu up to that alley, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
We
Friday
can give
night's
that a
5 to
try.
10.
Up to the alley?
The red
So
line.
that's cutting off, what is it cutting off? Cutting off your visual.
In front of Mount Whitney, in front of Mount Whitney.
You guys are saying it's a noise complaint, you guys are gonna keep the music in the same spot where the condos are. So I don't understand how you guys are saying that the issue is the noise, but you guys are keeping the music in the same area and where the condos are.
Okay, so is there a second? Is there a second?
And the vendor's good on the backside of the condos instead of.
Thinking about the red line, like everything else. and we
That's
got
an
one
alleyway, that's an alleyway. That's right between McDermott.
Is it, where the pharmacy thing is at, or
Right by
Brandon? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Yes?
yeah, it's that
It's
alleyway,
before there.
yes.
I mean, people can still walk down there, but you
No,
wouldn't
right.
have
Yeah.
booths set up down there.
Right.
Right.
That's all.
I'm just concerned with those businesses as well down there.
So the
Well, it's-
businesses can still set stuff up. If you have a
Oh,
brick
yeah.
and mortar, you can set stuff out on your sidewalk.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you can?
Oh, yeah.
So then why are we putting a line right?
For the people that live in Mount Whitney.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
But the music isn't there.
I know, and if there's people
All the
that
other-
still,
the
if
cleaning.
people.
If I may, counsel, the complaints that I get typically from those two residential areas are running the leaf blowers late at night. And they're trying to get it cleaned up, and somebody's out there, or they're playing music while they're running the leaf blower, not thinking about it. And I know they've made an effort to broom sweep it sometimes, but we've had multiple complaints from both of those areas about that specifically. Either music running too late, because people at their booths will run music sometimes, or running the leaf blowers.
Okay, but if we put the line, I mean, if we go up to the red line and you're stating that you can still put booths?
No. Well,
Just
I don't know.
just up to the
If
alley.
you have a business. Yeah, but that's what I was saying, I was concerned if it's not a.
But people are going to walk down the sidewalks.
Okay, can we put a contingency to where we don't have outside booths, but just have the brick and mortars, that they could have their booths out there? So,
I think they can.
That's what the red line would do.
Okay.
Because of the eyesight, the very corners there.
so all the businesses downtown can have their own booths? Yeah, in fact.
If I may press that just one inch further, council member, can they do that without charge?
Yeah.
I'm asking the council member.
I don't know, tell them before. We're
They've
gonna
been
have,
charged. It's supposed to help our bricks and mortar, but they've been charged. I think it'd be a great thing if the bricks and mortar could come out on the sidewalk and not have to pay a penalty for that.
I'm
But it's
surprised
your
they've
call.
been charged, because I thought originally.
When I
if you
spoke
had-
with Mr. Alvarado, Jesus Alvarado, he said it cost him $500 a month to participate.
It's $15.
you know what, I don't think they should get charged, me personally. If they have their own business, they should be
They're already
charged.
paying license, right? Yeah, I agree license.
So that's,
No double dipping.
and if the market stops at red line, then for those on the east side of the red line, and it's not part of the market area, so there's not a responsibility for whoever the market manager is, so they're more than no fee can do what they want there without being charged. All of those types of things with the brick and mortar or the rest, we're part of the negotiations, and it's very specific in the RFP to the point of this. The objective is to make sure that there's protections for the local businesses, so they're not damaged by out-of-city businesses. And so that's.
Like Chino's could put a booth out there.
They absolutely could.
Well, I don't.
You might now. So we've got up to that point, 5 to 10 on Fridays. That's the first one. I would like to second.
Second.
Thank you.
What, 5:10?
So I'm okay with all that, I just think there needs to be an extension, that was my only issue, I'm worried about the,
And you said a week extension.
It's the original, if they already have the plan, all they have to do is put downtown. That's it. What's so hard about that? They have the meat and potatoes, all you have to do is change the location.
Get rid of the golf club.
Well, we have already done.
So we turn one in already, we have others in the See, my motion in a second.
we do have a motion and a second, so, and to clarify, we have a motion for downtown, 5 to 10, not 6 to 10, 5 to 10,
Friday nights. Deadline for the RFP is when the doors close at 4 o'clock. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, council.
Okay, next item is formation of Harvard Park Ad Hoc Committee. Will present this, but we did bring this up last time.
We did, there's a keen interest in doing development out in that area. I know Councilmember Sanchez said she was very interested.
And I know the Kiwanis have been interested in doing some work out there, so it would be really great to get the Kiwanis and staff and council members involved to figure out what your vision is for that, for updating that thing and finding revenue streams to help do that. So that's the request, is to form an ad hoc committee to look specifically at Harvard Park.
And we had volunteers from Sanchez and Watson at our last meeting. So if that's still
Good.
the case, would entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
So it's Sanchez
and Watson?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carries. And last item, LAFCO, Large City, Small City Representatives, presented by Bill Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So LAFCO is looking for large city and small city representatives. Actually, TCAG is looking for this to represent the cities at LAFCO. Currently, we have Mayor Mendoza from Wood Lake that is on the small city portion, and they're hoping to have some competition there, and Mayor Kimball has offered to serve in that capacity. I honestly don't know who they have going for the large city, but we wanted to bring this before council to see if council would be willing to support Mayor Kimball serving as a small city rep for LAFCO. It's a big job, actually. I've presented at LAFCO, very detailed, very time consuming. It's an important job.
So moved.
I'll second it. If she wants to do it, I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, council.
And now I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.